What is going on, everyone? Welcome in to our next draft grades video for the 2022 NFL Draft. Here we're going to be talking about the NFC North. And I want to say again, I'm here to be critical of these drafts. This is not going to be NFL.com and ESPN, all A's and B's across the board, painting rainbows and butterflies on your team's draft class. No, I'm here to tell you like it is. I'm going to tell you based on my pre-draft evaluations who I think did a good job getting value down the board, and ultimately how I think these players are going to pan out at the next level. Realize I'm not going to be perfect, just like your team's NFL GM is not going to be perfect, but let's have some fun here. I do want to ask you guys, please do hit that like button if you enjoy the video. Also, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any more of these draft grades videos as we go. You're also not going to want to miss my summer deep dive series where we preview every single NFL team in their own video, counting down my power rankings. Probably my most favorite thing that I do on this channel every year. But let's go ahead and get started with the Chicago Bears. And Chicago kicked off their draft getting Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker, a pair of defensive backs in the second round. Obviously, no first round pick because of them moving up for Justin Fields last year. And it's an interesting draft here because this is a new regime for Chicago, but they are kind of inheriting the investment of Justin Fields. And to me, coming in, I thought their number one priority had to be getting help for Justin Fields, who to me has a lot of, I'm just going to say it, bad tendencies that you got to put the best offensive talent around him to make sure he has everything he needs to succeed and not really, make those bad tendencies a firm part of his game. So that to me is a little bit of a concern here when you look at what they did in the second round. It's not that they got bad players. I mean, Kyler Gordon is excellent value, fills a need on their defense, and I think he can play in the slot. I think he can play outside. He's just a really all-around sound prospect. Jaquan Brisker, same thing, a scheme versatile safety. And with the new system with Matt Eberflus, I completely see what he sees in these players. So it's tough for me. I like these picks, but I also am terrified for the Bears, just as I was after free agency ended, that they're not going to give Justin Fields the help he needs. I'm terrified that they're okay with that. And I just don't think that's fair to Justin Fields. I don't think that's fair to Bears fans. Even if it's a new regime, this team did make the investment in Justin Fields. And if you look at what every other team is doing with young quarterbacks, they're doing what they can to put talent around those young quarterbacks. So I think it's fair to be critical of the Bears for that. I think Matt Eberflus got himself a pair of really good defensive players, and when we look back on this draft years from now, I think these are going to be a couple of starters that could be kind of building blocks for their defense. So it's tough to be terribly critical of that, but I also think it's fair to knock them basically for not using these picks on George Pickens, and Alec Pierce, a Bernard Raymond, or some sort of offensive firepower for Fields, which this offense desperately needs. So I'd be more critical of the Brisker pick than the Kyler Gordon pick. I think corner 2 was a gaping problem for this team. Gordon was excellent value there right at the top of the second round. Whereas Brisker, I think you probably could have risked getting a safety with that third round pick and maybe gotten a better receiver or an offensive lineman that's more ready than Velus Jones or Braxton Jones, who are their next 2 picks. Velus Jones is a player I liked. I had a 3rd to a 4th round grade on him, which was higher than most people had on him. So I do see a lot of developmental upside for him, but he is an older rookie who does need to be developed. So that is worth noting. I think he'll be 24 in his rookie season, but a really explosive athlete, just dealt with really poor quarterback play at Tennessee. A guy that can separate down the field. He can track the deep ball. He's really explosive after the catch. I think he definitely fits this offense as far as what they look for in a wide receiver. Someone that has a lot of run after catch ability and someone that can run away from defensive backs on crossing routes, posts, corners, all that kind of stuff. So he's a good fit. It's a good pick for me. Wish it was someone a little bit more ready now, but it is the 3rd round. And then you have to wait until the 5th round here. They really loaded up on a ton of developmental offensive linemen here, which in general is good process for them. Just again, I wish they got some better day one tackle help here in the draft, which is something that's not really going to be available for them in free agency, most likely. Maybe Donald Penn comes back, but I just don't know that. But Braxton Jones, I would really lump him together with Ja'Tyre Carter. Both these guys, to me, small school, really athletic offensive linemen that just need NFL coaching to improve their technique. So I think both of those lumped together to me are good dart throws to make. I'm just going to talk about all the offensive linemen, and then we'll talk about the other ones. They take Zach Thomas as well, who is a really fun player. He is an absolute mauler. He brings that dickhead mentality of an offensive lineman that you look for. Really not a great mover. His foot speed is really clunky. But that said, he gets off the ball really fast. He's a much better athlete moving forward than he is moving backwards in pass protection. So this is a guy that played tackle in a run-heavy offense at San Diego State. You could tell that he was not going to be a good pass protecting tackle. They even listed him as a guard when they drafted him. So he's going to be brought in to compete on the inside. But in this blocking scheme where they're going to ask him to kind of get out, reach block, run a lot of wide zone, I think he's very capable of doing that. So he's a fun player in the 6th round. They take Doug Kramer. I didn't get to Doug Kramer, but I was aware of him. An athletic center with a ton of experience, just kind of a lack of play strength, but someone that can get in the mix there, at least provide quality depth and is a scheme fit. So they really grab 4 offensive linemen there that to me were all probably draftable prospects. Again, I just didn't get to Doug Kramer in this kind of class loaded with super seniors. But to me, the process of taking these dart throws late in the draft was good process by this team. It's just not, again, going to help Justin Fields. Then back to the 5th round, they did take Dominique Robinson. I did see this as a reach. I trust Matt Eberflus and this staff to develop him, but he's a player that I definitely think needs time, frankly, on a practice squad. And I know it's at the end of the 5th round, but usually I'm not thinking about these high developmental prospects until the 6th, 7th round. I think you can get more depth, impact than Dominique Robinson in the 5th round. He's a guy that converted from wide receiver at Miami of Ohio, has not played a lot of edge yet. But the other thing, I didn't think he was a draftable prospect because he's older for a developmental guy, and it's not like we're talking about some freak athlete here. He's a good athlete. He's got good jumping, and his speed is above average, but nothing like crazy here for a 24-year-old developmental prospect. So I'm just not crazy about that pick. I don't think it was the worst one in the world. I think it was just a slightly below average pick. They took Tristan Ebner out of Baylor. This is a good pick. He fits their system. I had him as an outside zone / receiving scheme fit, so I think he'll provide someone with some explosiveness as a receiver on 3rd downs next to David Montgomery. They did cut Tariq Cohen. I think Ebner fits what you look for in a wide zone running back as well, someone that can obviously get to the corner and edge out linebackers to the corner, obviously, but then have the speed to accelerate into the 2nd level and hit home runs off of outside zone. So he is a good fit. I thought that was excellent value for Tristan Ebner late in the draft, so a good pick there. Then they take Elijah Hicks late in the 7th round. I mean, hey, I think basically Mr. Irrelevant here for the Bears. Why not? He was a very productive player at California. Just didn't test out the moon or anything like that, but could make the team and provide some safety depth. And then they take a punter, which is fine by me at the end of the 7th round. Totally cool with that. So ultimately, I'm giving the Bears a C+ grade. I don't think this was a great draft. I think it was fine. I'm just going to be critical of them for not getting more help for Justin Fields. Frankly, I think obviously Matt Eberflus wants defensive talent. He's a defensive-minded guy, but that's also part of the worry when you hire a defensive-minded head coach. This is an offensive league. This is a league about quarterback play. And if Justin Fields isn't going to work out here, you're going to be right back to square one. And I think this is a really important year for the Bears. And I just think their priorities this entire offseason have been a little bit off. So I'm just going to be honest about that. We'll see how it works out. But I think they got some players here that will be starters. they better. They had like 11 picks here, but really not my favorite draft as far as the players they got, and also just not, the process I would have gone about for the Bears. But not the end of the world. It's not like a horrible grade or anything. Let's move on to the Detroit Lions. Much smaller draft class here after they gave up some mega capital to come up for Jameson Williams, but we'll talk about that in a second. They land Aiden Hutchinson, courtesy of the Jacksonville Jaguars, who take Trayvon Walker. I don't think they fully believed that this was going to happen until a few days ago, but man, are they happy. Aiden Hutchinson, to me, is the most impactful rookie in this class when you factor in the position that he plays. I think guys like Breece Hall, for example, may be even better as rookies just on what position they play, but Aiden Hutchinson's a pass rusher, so that's a big deal. It's a huge upgrade for their defense. It's going to make everybody better. You're getting Jeff Okudah back into the mix here. Hopefully getting a better pass rush in front of him will help his development. And to top it all off, he's a Michigan man. He's a Detroit born and raised player. Gives you a face for your defense, a marketing piece, someone to get the fans excited. Not that that's truly important from a football perspective, but it's just an extra added storyline that's really fun. So excellent pick for Detroit. And even though I had Kayvon Thibodeaux as my number one edge, I would have gone Aiden Hutchinson here because I think they needed that day one impact, and the fact that he is a Detroit guy gives you that extra edge. And heck, he's that, tough kneecap biting type that Dan Campbell's going to want as well. So an excellent pick. Then they trade up for Jameson Williams. This was one of my favorite moves of the draft. Detroit had picks to spare, right? They have an extra first round pick here. They have another first round pick next year from the Rams. So go get yourself another elite game-changing talent on this team. I think they've done a really good job the last really, I would just say 2 years now, including this draft, kind of finding players that can contribute on value. So why not now get a little bit more aggressive to get a true impactful player in a class and in a year where wide receivers are going like toilet paper during COVID. Like everybody is rushing to get these receivers. So go make a move. Go get aggressive. Go get yourself Jameson Williams, who, might redshirt here for a little bit. I think he will eventually get on the field at some point in this season. And man, this receiving core is shaping up. The offensive line is shaping up. The defense is shaping up. Everything is shaping up for you to eventually go get yourself a quarterback. I would have seen it as a colossal failure for the Detroit Lions if they took a quarterback at all in this draft class, because for me, they are setting themselves up for greatness at that position, not quality. Like, Jared Goff is going to play pretty well here for this team, but you're going to put yourself in a position, whether it's trading for a Kyler Murray next year if things flame out there, or maybe you are in position to get a Bryce Young. You don't know, but as soon as they get that opportunity to get a real elite quarterback in the building here, they're going to be presenting to that player the most ideal situation possible. Jameson Williams, to me, was the number 2 receiver in this class and is going to be a dominant deep threat at the next level. So I loved what they did in the first round. Day 2, they start with Josh Pascal out of Kentucky. I'm okay with this pick. Again, I'm going to be a little bit more critical here. C+ is an above average pick. I think this pick was a little bit more than fine. So I do like this pick, but there's just other directions I think you could have gone, be it corner or a better safety or I don't know. For me, Josh Pascal's a role player for them. I don't see him having this great upside to become like a number 2 pass rusher opposite of Aiden Hutchinson someday. And frankly, they don't need that. They have Aquara in the building. They have really a lot of guys in the building. They have Aquara's brother. They still have Charles Harris. So to me, Josh Pascal is going to be kind of a 4-eye role-playing early down run defender. He's going to be in the mix. Maybe they ask him to put on a little bit weight and be more of a, 3-tech, true interior defensive player. Really strong player, excellent run defender. And to tell you why I do like this player, I actually had an identical run defense grade on Pascal as I did on Trayvon Walker, who was the number 1 pick. So I do think he's going to play a role, so I don't think it was a wasted pick by any stretch of the imagination. I just don't think you'll look back on this and say, okay, a top 50 pick for him. I just think it was a little bit rich, but ultimately I can kind of see where they imagine him contributing for them as a base down defender. Then at the end of the third round, they take Kirby Joseph. Really good value here. I mentioned I probably would have gone safety in the second, but Kirby Joseph, not a bad consolation prize here. Not a super high upside player here, but I think fits the mold of a strong safety in their system. Someone that is really good in man coverage, really quick feet, long arms to get in the way of passing lanes, can improve as a run defender as well. Just wasn't asked to play down in the box a ton at Illinois. So we'll see how they use him, but that was a good value. They take James Mitchell out of Virginia Tech. I had him more as a late 7th priority free agent, kind of dart throw. A little bit rich, but tight ends had started to fly off the board. Maybe they saw something I didn't, and he's a good kind of contested catch, go get it tight end. His senior season was cut short due to injury, so there could be more there that we're just not seeing. So not going to really shred that pick. Love the Malcolm Rodriguez pick in the 6th round. I had him as a 4th round linebacker. He was a top 10 linebacker for me. He has everything you look for. He's fast. He's a little bit undersized, but he's physical to take on blocks. I think he's functional as maybe a number 2 linebacker. I think he's got active eyes in zone coverage. I think he's got enough athleticism to man up. Maybe decent player. I don't think he'll be like a lockdown man linebacker or anything like that, but he's got good speed. I don't think he's particularly tight. He's a heavy hitter. He'll be a great special teamer. Heck, I think Malcolm Rodriguez can develop here and become a starter. And for a team that was potentially going to be looking at like a Nakobe Dean top of the 2nd to kind of fill that linebacker need, I think getting Malcolm Rodriguez in the 6th round gives you a very similar level player as kind of an undersized weak side linebacker of sorts. So we'll see, I guess, if he can ascend to starting ranks. He's not going to get the runway of maybe a 2nd or a 3rd round linebacker to get the time to prove that, but I do believe he has starter potential here as a 6th round pick, which is obviously an A grade. Then we have James Houston out of Jackson State, end of the 6th round, a player I wasn't able to get to. Jackson State, just this guy wasn't exactly on my radar, but looks like a really rocked up kind of situational pass rusher, a guy that can play special teams, so no problem with that in the 6th round. And then they take Chase Lucas out of Arizona State. Fine value, nothing crazy here. He's a competitive, experienced corner that can really run a lot of coverages, kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. Is going to be a 25-year-old rookie. Don't see a lot of upside there, but can provide some depth and experience to your cornerback room. So ultimately, I love this draft for the Detroit Lions. That 1st round right there is incredibly impactful and gets you start talking about an A grade. I think their mid rounds were solid, not enough to take away from what they did in the 1st round. I think especially the Malcolm Rodriguez pick could be a starter. I think Kirby Joseph could turn into a starter for them, and Pascal will play a role. So really good draft for the Detroit Lions. I love what they've done. I think I gave them an A or even an A+ last year as well. So the new regime, Brad Holmes there, Dan Campbell, have built a Lions fan out of me, and I'm excited to see where they go. I think they'll compete this year, and when they can get that good quarterback in there, this roster is shaping up very nicely, which it's come a long way from where they were when that regime took over. All right, the Green Bay Packers, interesting draft here because I think they started off with one of the worst picks in the entire draft and then knocked it out of the park basically everywhere after that. So Quay Walker goes at pick 22, and I shredded this on draft night, and I'll shred it again. And I want to clarify this to Packers fans. It is not that I think Quay Walker can't turn into a really good linebacker for them. That is not what this is about. There's a variety of reasons why I think this was a horrible draft pick for Green Bay. Number one, 1st round linebackers and just the linebacker in position, you got to be really careful. If you look at the hit rate of 1st round linebackers, it is viewed as the least valuable position on the defense. Their own linebacker, by the way, which is a good note for my next point on why this is not a good pick. Devondre Campbell was an all-pro linebacker. He signed for $10 million a year. That's about a third of what the wide receiver position gets paid. So I just want to point out that drafting a linebacker in the first round alone tends to be pretty bad process, unless you're getting some blue chip great linebacker prospect like a Micah Parsons. Quay Walker's not Micah Parsons, you guys. I had a third round grade on Quay Walker, which, sure, maybe I was too low on Quay Walker. And again, he might develop in a system here as a first round pick with a lot of athleticism where he's going to get years and years of runway to develop. He might turn into a Devondre Campbell replacement down the road. But it was not a need. You have Devondre Campbell there. This is a team that has taken linebackers off the field on passing downs to get into their dime packages. I thought a safety pick like Daxton Hill would have been a way better pick if you had to avoid wide receiver here. But that's the final point of this all. This team needed wide receiver. It was the biggest need of any team in the entire draft, you could make an argument, based on how desperate this team is to win right now, the age of their quarterback, how bad the room is at wide receiver, and the fact that this team got this pick because they traded away Davante Adams. So it's not necessarily that this pick had to be a receiver. It's just the process here was really screwed up. For number one, I think they really should have been more aggressive to go up and do what a lot of teams did. Go trade up for a Jamison Williams, trade up for a Treylon Burks. Oh, and you can't just sit there the night after and say, well, we tried, sorry. That's been the mantra of this front office for a long time now. The amount of almosts they have trying to go get a receiver. Grow a pair of nuts and make it happen. That's all I'm going to say about this pick. So this pick right here sucks. It reeks, I think, Quay Walker, the difference between him and a Chad Muma or a Troy Anderson or a Nakobe Dean, even a Malcolm Rodriguez, like sorry, I'm all over the place here, but Damone Clark. Like, there was a cluster of linebackers that Quay Walker was a part of. This pick just made no sense to me. And you ended up having to overpay to go get Christian Watson to compensate for this. It would have been a so much more thoughtful plan to take Devonte Wyatt here, grab Watson at 28, and then you have a pair of second-round picks to still maybe even get Quay Walker with the 52nd pick. And if you miss out on Walker, don't be so confident in that evaluation. Like, Chad Muma and Troy Anderson and these guys are right in that cluster. It is a very hard sell for me to tell me, based on Quay Walker's tape, that he is a dramatically better prospect than the options they would have had in the second round if they had to go linebacker, which is debatable in the first place. So that whole process to me was screwed up. I think you could have gone Wyatt and Watson in the first, still gotten a linebacker, and then you have another second round pick to maybe go with a Trey McBride or a better wide receiver prospect or something else. So I do think that whole process is something to be critical of. I don't like this pick, and I think Quay Walker will probably turn into a very good player for Green Bay. That is not what this is about. The draft is a strategy that you have to play the game, especially when your team really trying to win right now. So that right there is a knock, but everything else I have to say is incredibly positive for this team's draft. And at the end of the day, I do like this team's draft. I'll show you right now. I give it a B+ grade. So they get Devonte Wyatt, excellent value. I did think this team could have used another piece next to Kenny Clark, not just to help their run defense, but their pass rush. This completes their defensive line in a way that you really could have only dreamed of. There was only a small handful of players in this draft that are going to give you a day one impact on the D-line, and Devonte Wyatt was one of them. So that's a great pick. I really think that's an A value for a first-round pick right there. Christian Watson, in a vacuum, is a great pick here. I think you do have to knock it because they had to kind of overpay to come up and do this. Now, I appreciate that they finally made that trade up happen here in the second round. You know, I think Watson's an excellent player with a ton of upside. He's definitely on the raw side of things, not a guy that produced a lot. I think from a route running perspective, he's going to have to really work at his craft to be this team's number one wide receiver. That's a stretch. Like, I think Watson maybe by 2023 could, with Aaron Rodgers, become one of the best receivers in the NFL. Absolutely. This guy has to not shy away from it, like Randy Moss physical ability. So really like the most impressive physical talent that Aaron Rodgers has ever gotten to work with. But you know, I think you do have to knock the kind of process here. That the value that they gave up to get him was an overpay. They gave up 2 good second-round picks to go get him. Sean Ryan in the 3rd round, slam dunk pick, paired with really Zach Tom. I mean, these are excellent values, especially Zach Tom, that I would have said take ahead of Sean Ryan in the 3rd round. So that they get him almost as a 5th-round pick is incredible. Both these guys are the exact type of offensive lineman that Green Bay has turned into excellent players, like John Runyon, for example, Elton Jenkins, guys with positional flexibility that can play guard, can play tackle. It's exactly what they need because their O-line's kind of in a state of flux right now with Elton Jenkins kind of, is he going to be ready week 1? Is he going to be a tackle? There's a lot of questions there, but man, they got, to me, 2 starting caliber guys, and you maybe didn't just upgrade your left guard spot, you upgraded your right tackle spot, because I think this does signal that Elton Jenkins will be playing right tackle for them, and you could upgrade at guard, you could upgrade at center. It's a really impressive haul to get these 2 offensive linemen for Green Bay, and it makes up for some of the value they lost early on, honestly. Romeo Doubs at the end of the 4th round, I think is a great fit for him. I did have a 6th to a 7th round grade on Romeo Doubs, but if you look at the amount of receivers that had come off the board at this point, if they wanted a possession receiver on the outside that was going to be good as that outside threat, really good like back shoulder chemistry Doubs had with Carson Strong, a red zone threat. He's a really poor man's Devontae Adams. He's big, he's physical, he has really quick feet. I liked his release package on tape, though it looked terrible at the Senior Bowl where his stock kind of plummeted a little bit. So I do like this pick, given the amount of receivers that had come off the board. Really, probably, if you had to go a receiver, there probably would have been my pick for Green Bay based on the players available. Then you get late in the draft here, they get Kingsley Enagbare. You know, this was a good call by me. He was on my not my guys list. I had a 6th to a 7th round grade on him. This is someone that was projected to maybe go in the 3rd round, even the 2nd round you saw quite frequently. That to me was crazy. He's a really bad athlete. I think he'll defend the run well at the next level, but I see him as a rotational early down edge player whose pass production at South Carolina is not replicable for him at the next level. He just has no athletic ability to win as a pass rusher in the NFL, in my opinion. So that said, he wasn't not my guy, but you know, he was the best edge player available for them at that point. A lot of edge players had come off the board, so obviously I had a 6th to 7th round grade on him, but he was the highest rated guy I had left at that point, and I think they needed kind of an early down run defender type like him, because you have, you know, Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary, obviously, but you got to give them some time on the gas mask to get fresh. So Enagbare is a B grade for me that late in the draft. A lot of people are probably going to grade that an A. I'm just lower on Kingsley Enagbare. They take Tariq Carpenter out of Georgia Tech. So I didn't do his eval, but when I found out after the draft, he grew up a Packers fan and he's a safety that likes to hit and ran 4.4. That's exactly what this team needed to improve their special teams issues. You know, they overpaid to get Rich Bisaccia in the building. Special teams cost this team multiple games last year, including their playoff loss. So a glaring special teams need there. And I think they got probably one of the better special teams kick cover guys in this draft based on kind of my post-draft evaluation on him. They take Jonathan Ford. I mean, it's whatever, 7th round pick. He was the lowest rated defensive lineman I did. I don't see him making it. I don't think he can rush the passer. He had laughable pass rush production at Miami. But maybe he surprises. I doubt it. Then Rasheed Walker, another one of my not my guys from my video earlier this week. But again, a 6th, 7th round grade on Rasheed Walker. And I mean, you get a young, highly recruited Big Ten offensive lineman to get better coaching here in Green Bay. We'll see. I mean, he may not even make the team, but a lot of people thought that was a 3rd round talent. I did not. But this late in the draft, definitely the value checks out. And then they just throw a dart at some speed out of Nebraska. Samori Toure, not someone I evaluated. Good with that process, but probably not going to make the team at this point. But overall, I do give the Packers a B+ grade. I just thought the Quay Walker pick was so freaking stupid, but they made up with so much value after that. It's hard to really be overly critical of this draft. I think they got an excellent haul when you look back at this class. Honestly, I think they may have gotten 4 or 5 starters out of this class when you look at those first 3 picks. And then I think between Dubs and Ryan and Tom, like, I honestly think you got 4 or 5 starters out of this draft, which is a really impressive haul. A lot of players I like. So a B+ grade for the Green Bay Packers when all is said and done, even though I hated that first pick. And then lastly, the Minnesota Vikings. And I'm just going to be straight up. I did not like this Vikings draft class. I think they did some nice stuff in the first year here with Kwesi, but a lot of stuff that does not excite me, and a lot of players that I think they overdrafted based, again, off of my own evaluations. I could be wrong, but let's get into it. They take Lewis Cine after trading down. So they get they flip second round picks and they get a third round pick to move from 12 to 32. That's a massive drop in talent. You're giving up a true first round player. And then to me, you're drafting, again, in my opinion, Lewis Cine's more of a developmental safety. His stock was overinflated a little bit because he played on that great Georgia defense. Good prospect. I don't think this pick is terrible in a vacuum, but to me, you could have gotten a Daxton Hill, who to me is just an overall much better player. You could have taken Kyle Hamilton earlier on in the draft. You could have gotten a better corner. You could have gotten like Trent McDuffie. You could have gone in a lot of different directions. You could have stayed put and taken Jameson Williams. Like, there are some things that this team could have done with that 12th pick that would have been, on its own, frankly, if they just had that pick, a better haul than everything else they got, because I'm just not crazy about the rest of these players. But they trade down, they take Lewis Cine, I think can develop into a really good safety someday. I think he's going to have some coverage issues early on based on what I saw on film. In theory, him at 32, not the worst thing in the world, but the whole process here to me was just below average. I'm not excited about that entire move. Then in the second round, they actually trade down again, and then they take Andrew Booth. So it's easy to sit here and say Booth is a great value. Everybody had a first round, evaluation on him. Perfectly fits the scheme as a zone corner, and it's true. He's an excellent fit in Minnesota. Honestly, if you flip these two, I'd be more excited about the 2 picks. So you can do a little bit of mental gymnastics there with these 2 guys, but you do have to acknowledge why he was available in the middle of the second round in the first place, and that's medical red flags. Clearly, a lot of teams were worried about this. This is something that was pretty clear before the draft, so you're rolling the dice a little bit. We'll see if he can stay healthy at the next level, and hopefully this isn't another Vikings cornerback that can't get on the field, because they've invested a lot in these guys, Jeff Gladney and Mike Hughes, that just haven't been able to be out there. So in theory, a very good pick, almost an A- with an asterisk, or an A with an asterisk being that minus. I do like this pick. I want to be clear about that, but there is some risk involved with it. And then where I really get critical of this draft class is what they did with their second and third round picks. So they take Ed Ingram. To me, this is too early. I think he can be a starter. He has really good athleticism. He's rocked up. He's really strong. He's physical. I originally had a third round grade on him until I learned that he himself has a kind of history of off-field character concerns. He was suspended from the team. That to me does matter. I think that pushes him down a little bit. I had him as a 4th, 5th round guy. And I don't know if just him, the football player, is better than, say, Wyatt Davis or even Udo, who's there at guard. I think there were better options available for this team. Again, we're going off of my evaluations, and I do think this was an overdraft. I will be a little bit surprised if he becomes a good starter for the Vikings. Can definitely prove me wrong, though. And then the pick I really didn't like here was Brian Asamoah. So essentially what you did, if you go from 12 to 32 and you really draft well with this, second and third round pick that you got essentially for that, you can make the most of it. But to me, even especially Brian Asamoah, at least Ingram, I can see the upside. If they're cool with the off-field stuff, I think, I had a third round grade on him originally. I can see him working out. Brian Asamoah, to me, no way. I will be stunned if he becomes a quality starter as an early 3rd round pick. And again, a cost of trading down from getting Jamison Williams or Daxton Hill or Trent McDuffie. He's a dime linebacker at best. Most likely he's a special teamer. He has decent coverage ability. He's fast, but completely gets washed out against the run. I think he's going to be a problem for them if he sees the field now, and I will be surprised if he develops into a really good player. So I really think that was a bad pick. So overall, this is the meat of your draft, and I'm walking away really underwhelmed. You have a developmental safety in Lewis Cine. You have Andrew Booth, who you hope can stay on the field, and really these next 2 picks, I don't think were good ones. So I'm going to be very critical of the Vikings for that. The rest of the draft wasn't bad, but nothing terribly exciting either. They take a Caleb Evans out of Missouri, who's a really athletic, lengthy zone corner. He's kind of the last remaining guy to me that could surprise and be a starter for this team. He's kind of a poor man's Andrew Booth, so you're kind of throwing similar darts at those 2 players. Lengthy, athletic zone corners. No issue with that pick at all. In fact, I thought that was a really good pick. They take Asezi Otomeo out of Minnesota. With the Rams' influences coming over here, not just with their head coach, but their defensive coordinator, we've seen the Rams take kind of oversized edge players and convert them into interior defensive linemen for their system. So I'm going to assume that's the plan here with Asezi Otomeo. And that's actually something I really like. I like the plan there. He was not someone that was going to do much for you as an edge player other than defend the run. But I like the idea of him putting on another 10 pounds and playing more of a 3 technique for them. Curious to see how that works out. Obviously, hometown kid as well. Ty Chandler in the end of the 5th round is a really good pick for them. I think he fits their outside zone rushing scheme, gives them a bit of a home run threat. If anything were to happen to Dalvin Cook, a guy that has, let's just face it, had injuries follow him throughout his career, so he gives you a good backup there. And he probably gives you an out to Alexander Madison. Different style, but I do think Chandler is a good value at that point in the draft. They take Vidarian Lowe, kind of a developmental tackle. Looks the part. I have no problem with that pick. I thought that was a good dart throw to make. Jalen Naylor out of Michigan State. To me, he was not really a draftable prospect. His tape was really underwhelming. But that said, I see where he fits here. I think if you just looked at Jalen Naylor's lists of strengths, they would be, I will just say, similar descriptions to what Cooper Kupp's strengths are, but Cooper Kupp's would be getting words like elite or great at, whereas Jalen Naylor, you're saying things like good or solid at. But run after catch threat, good run blocker, someone that really kind of struggled to get the ball on the outside as a receiver at Michigan State, but on the inside as a slot at the next level, could surprise. And then they take Nick Muse out of South Carolina. Someone I was not able to get to, unfortunately, and I think fine. We'll see what happens there with him. But this is a draft class that I'm going to be very critical of. I think the trade down was kind of a failure for the Vikings, and we'll see. These guys can prove me wrong. I just would bet against it based on my evaluations. If they prove me wrong, I'll be the first to admit it, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. Ed Ingram, Brian Asamoah, Lewis Cine, Andrew Booth is fine if he can stay healthy. If I were a Vikings fan, I would be really disappointed with this haul, and I genuinely think this was one of the worst drafts of the weekend. So Vikings fans will definitely have to let me hear it if you disagree, or let me know if you agree. Let me know, other fans as well, what you thought. Thank you so much for watching. Really hope you guys enjoyed. Please do hit that like button if you did. Make sure you subscribe for the rest of my draft grades videos, and we'll see you then. We'll see you for the AFC East, which will be our next vid. Peace out.